Organized crime is everywhere in the Americas, but only two countries, Mexico and Colombia, ever developed the kind of outfit powerful enough to challenge the state and control drug trafficking across the region. This is not an accident. But why? Why did the major drug cartels develop in Mexico and Colombia and not somewhere else, say Central America or Cuba? The first part of the answer is geography. Illegal narcotics follow the laws of supply and demand just like any other commodity, and supply chains have developed exactly as one would expect, between the United States, the largest consumer of drugs on the planet, and Peru and Bolivia, the biggest global producers of coca leaf, the main ingredient in cocaine. Colombia, for example, is almost exactly halfway between the two, with easy access to major trading routes. Mexico, on the other hand, is also in between, with the added advantage of a shared border that just happens to be one of the largest trade zones in the world. The second part is the state weakness. Organized crime is hard to develop in countries with high state capacity, whether they are dictatorships or not, like say Cuba or Uruguay. The reason is obvious. A stronger state will be more able to curb any drug cartel if it chooses to, meaning that they won't develop, or at least no organization independent of the state will, an important distinction. Chileans had actually been the trailblazers in the trafficking of cocaine in the early 1970s, given that they shared a border with both Peru and Bolivia and had a wide coast they could use to transport it, but Pinochet's 1973 coup brought a crackdown that forced routes to go north, which basically guaranteed going through Colombia. Putting those two things together explains why drug cartels developed where they developed inside of Mexico and Colombia. In Mexico, the original one began in Sinaloa, a relatively inaccessible mountainous region famous for bandits like Heraclio Bernal, where the reach of the state had historically been lacking and where the geography was ideal for the growing of pot that also had easy access to its main consumer market, the United States. In other words, the first Mexican cartel originated in the closest place to the US-Mexico border that was both ideal for the cultivation of cannabis and far away from Mexico City. It helped that connections for illicit trafficking had developed even earlier with other types of smuggling because of prohibition in the 1920s, finalizing the necessary ingredients for a durable supply chain. In Colombia, the original one developed in Medellin, once again in a mountainous area away from the power center in Bogotá, but already connected to global trade routes because the region around Medellin already cultivated and processed one of the country's most important legal commodities, coffee. The other one, in Cali, was basically identical with added benefit of easy access to a port, Buenaventura. And just like with Mexico, there also already existed connections for illicit activity because of the smuggling of emeralds, and separately, even narcotics. This last one with Cubans in Florida had begun because anti-Castro partisans began smuggling drugs to pay for anti-Castro activity, and so the last link was put in place. Later, crackdowns, especially in the 1980s and 1990s, reshaped this, especially shifting power away from Colombia towards Mexico. But no other country in the Americas has developed anything similar.